Hey everybody, wanted to talk to you guys for a minute about, this is specifically for those of you who are aspiring to be traditionally published. About half the clients I work with are looking for a traditional publishing contract, which typically means a literary agent and then on to the actual publishing. Some of those are with the big five, some of those are through smaller presses, but I'm talking about the model where there are no upfront costs and that kind of thing. So let's focus mostly on the traditional publishing houses, like we think the big New York publishing houses. Okay, so as I said, about half of my clients, that's what they're aspiring to, and so most of them have already a completed manuscript. Time management is not their issue, and they definitely are disciplined when it comes to their writing. And that's the critical component if you want to be a writer. Obviously, you've got to finish your manuscript. So that is not an issue at all. But there's a second component to discipline that I want to talk about, because in talking to, just in general, people, the discipline of being emotionally disciplined and having emotional fortitude is extremely important. And it's one of the critical pieces that I think sometimes we're not thinking about when we pick a publishing model that we want to move toward. We may not understand how the industry works, and without an understanding of how people make their money and when, it's very difficult for us to really have a way to set reasonable expectations. And one of the things that I hear a lot is how disappointing it is, how frustrating it is for authors to have to wait so long to get a response from agents, and then that the feedback is maybe not what they had expected, as far as they would have liked more information, and also that the rejection factor. So it takes the emotional roller coaster, right? It's managing that emotional roller coaster that's so difficult. So I just want to talk about that a little bit. If you are going to the traditional publishing model, you're going to have those frustrations. If you understand that literary agents have a lot of things coming at them, and also that they are working to get the clients that they have contracts, it's much better or easier to frame expectations. So if you consider that a literary agent's job has a couple of components. First of all, they are reading query letters and samples of manuscripts to determine whether or not that author is a good fit for them. And I talk in other videos about fit. There are many components to that, and a lot of times rejection, we can feel rejected by an agent when it has nothing to do with our writing. Maybe the quality of our writing is excellent and the story is excellent, or the topic is excellent, but it's not a good fit for that agent for many other reasons, okay? So that's difficult, and that again goes to, we often don't know what those reasons are. And so we can take it personally when we're rejected, when it's really just a business decision. The other thing to think about is that, and this is where that emotional fortitude comes in, because the publishing journey, it is a long process. When you consider how many query letters you're going to send, and then how long it's going to take for them to get back, you can be talking at least a couple of months before you even get a bite. So let's assume, best case scenario, that you send out a batch of queries and you get feedback from one in about 3 months and they show some interest. Well, now you start the next phase, which is the phase of, more discussions and the contract negotiations and all of those things, right? So that can take a long time, depending on how long it takes for you to get your attorney to look at the contract and what they come back with, and just that negotiation process can take a long time. And then once you've got a contract there, then that agent is going to go out and try to sell that manuscript to a publishing house. And now, there's lots of variables. So I'm just talking in general because contracts are different and all of that. But then you've got probably an exclusive contract with that one agent. So your book is locked up from then on out. And then that agent is going to go out and try to find a publisher for you. So all of those things take a lot of time. And the finding a publisher for you is kind of like when you go out and query agents, right? You start that process kind of all over again. And then from that point on, there's a series of things that have to happen within the publishing company. Get the contract signed, again, you're talking about months possibly of negotiation and back and forth and for them just to make a buying decision. And then you get put into a production line. So you have to think of it in terms of kind of best case scenario. You're talking about a multi-year process from the time you start sending query letters to the time the book is actually published. So aside from understanding the financial implications of your decision about which model to go with, which is beyond the scope of this video, there is a timeline component. And all along the way, it's this huge roller coaster of, setbacks and emotional highs and then rejection. And I hate to use that word, a no thank you, because a no thank you can be for so many reasons. It's really not a rejection. So lots of promising things and then no thank yous, and you're just on this roller coaster, and it can be brutal. And in the meantime, you can feel stalled. So understanding that this is going to be a multi-year process is really important before you go into this. You've got to know, all right, what emotional fortitude do I have? Do I have the emotional discipline to weather these things? Now, why have I stacked up a bunch of books while I've been talking? So I stacked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I stacked up 7 books here. And I'm going to move them because they're in my way. So there's 7 books. If you can imagine, and this is probably a conservative estimate for many agents, that represents just 1 query a day. So at the end of a week, they've got 7 to however many query letters and manuscript samples in front of them. And not only do they have to go through all of those, but they have to, they're also making contacts to expand their network, because an agent is only as good as their network and their contacts. And that is something that's also sometimes invisible to an author. So again, that's a whole nother discussion. But my point is, if you have a great agent, if you're querying a really connected agent, they're managing so many different relationships, and their primary driver is to get the manuscripts sold that they have contracted with. And so, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't kind of sound nice to say it, but in many ways, those incoming manuscripts are their lowest priority, if that makes sense. Because if you think about it, let's say you get contracted with an agent, do you really want them spending their time, which is your time, reading a bunch of query letters and doing things that are not moving their clients forward? So, there is a hierarchy and there are trade-offs. So it's helpful to understand the process and see it from the perspective of literary agents and publishers, and to really understand the industry and how people get paid, to help you set those expectations reasonably. And then when you get a no thank you letter, to help you manage your emotional reaction to that. I've been rejected myself. It doesn't feel great, but it's business. And I'd rather get a rejection from somebody who doesn't publish something of mine that's not a good fit, and have the opportunity to publish that in some other way that's a better fit, because that's going to work for me in the long run. So two things are necessary. If you're watching this video all the way to the end, you probably already have the first thing, and that's the discipline to actually sit down and do the work. You respect the work, and you've done that, and that's awesome. And really the second thing is, if you're feeling frustrated and distraught when you get a no thank you letter, or if something takes a long time, then that's just something to consider, is to try to work on that emotional component and the emotional discipline that's going to be required for this very long-term process. And the good news is, some of us just aren't built to do that, or because of our goals, we don't have that much time. We need to get this thing out. We've got other things we want to do. That's totally fine too. In that case, consider this and go, do I need to reconsider which publishing model that I want to go under? Because there's lots of options, and none are better than the others. It's just a matter of what's the right fit and the right timing, the right personality, and all of that stuff. So I hope that's encouraging to you and helps you really frame the way you think about things and the way you think about discipline, because so often we think about discipline mostly when it just comes to the actual work that we're doing and the putting our butts in our chairs and putting our hands on the keyboards. And there's a lot more to it than that. And I think the harder part of it is honestly the emotional discipline that comes. So best of luck to you. And if you have questions or comments, an experience that you would like to share, those are all helpful. Feel free to make a comment, and have an awesome day.